Fearless family, I am super excited to bring to you one of our own. We're back at it again with our podcast this week. I don't do a great job at sharing the successes of our students, of people that are out there doing the deals that we teach them how to do. And this one in particular is an incredible one because we have John Davis, who just in the last 3 months has since quit his job, but additionally has bought a pool company that has replaced his W-2 income creatively. He bought it creatively, and then also bought a property that was $350,000 for 15 grand down, right? At a 4% interest rate. And the crazy thing about all this, guys, is he did it with none of his own money. And so I'm excited to dive into the weeds about John's story. And what I particularly like about this is it's relatable, right? He is not doing anything abnormal, anything crazy. And as you start to hear the principles and the life lessons that he's applied throughout his career to eventually make the jump into becoming a full-time real estate investor, that's something I want all of you to take and learn from, because John is an action taker. He's a doer. He has an incredible support system, and he's just made the best of the opportunities that has been in front of him. So I'm excited to dive into this one. We spend a lot of good time in the details, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. Fearless Investors, 6FF Group, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am super excited for today because we have somebody that I actually got a lot of DMs about this announcement, because this is one of our own. Good old John Davis with B Flip Davis. John is an absolute stud. Many of you may recognize him or know him already, just because him and his wife Bethany have, I mean, you guys have like shot up like a rocket with your guys' business. And I know that there's a lot of students that are watching other students that are winning, and they're just curious about how they're doing it. And so today I have the legend, John Davis, with us. I'm super stoked to dive into the story. John, thanks for being here, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I love being on here with you. So I don't even know what you're going to ask me yet, so I'm excited.
Dude, we're just going to dive in the weeds. And if you're tuning in, this is your opportunity to pick the brains of somebody that has been literally in your shoes really only a few months ago. I mean, in the whole, and we'll start here, John, like in your whole, in the whole Fearless Investors Network, right? Because you started with Kyle in the 6FF. And then obviously now you're an all-star in CASTR. How long has it been from beginning to end? Like, how long have you been in this economy for?
February 2023, we started.
So it's just over a year.
Yeah. So I've been doing mortgages for about 5 years. I've been a licensed mortgage loan originator. So I got a little bit of the terms and the understanding of, dang, there's people making a lot of money in real estate. But as far as 6FF and Airbnb or short-term rental and CASTR type stuff, March or February of 2023.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And we're going to dive into the whole story. I want to start from there because there's a lot that's happened in just like 18 months.
Yeah.
And so I'm super excited to kind of catch people up to today. But before we do that, let's rewind the clock and go to the beginning of really yours and Bethany's journey, right? Because I also know that you guys had experience in real estate with other mentors before you found the Fearless Investors. So talk to us really about your start in real estate in general with you and your wife and your guys' family business.
Yeah. So my wife and I, if I'm not going to go through all the details of this part of it, but all the way back, we have 5 kids now. I used to run a restaurant with my father, and it was just tough. We're like, we don't make that much money. So we started going to garage sales and flipping furniture pre-Gary V, before all his videos and stuff like that. I'm sure he was doing it, but like we were going to garage sales and I was buying junk and selling it on Facebook Marketplace to try to make ends meet. And then we did sports cars, or sports cards. We did tickets. I did cars. I did like 75. I flipped probably 75 cars over the course of a few years with my father-in-law. And then worked with my brother, my best friend, and we flipped a house. And so we got into real estate that way. Bought a house right here in my hometown, Lodi, and took about 8 months, like way longer, learned a ton, but we made money on it. So that was good. And during that time, I also bought my own house that I live in now. And I saw how much my mortgage loan originator made. And I was like, I bet you I could do that too. And so I was really blessed to get my license right as interest rates were going down. So I refied a lot of people, helped. I mean, probably close to like 60 or 70 million in loan origination. Not that I made, that'd be sick, but as far as value of the loans that I did. So that's kind of like real brief. And during that time, I'm sure you want to know this, I was a police officer. So I was a police officer for the last 7 years, for probably about a 45-minute commute from my hometown.
Bro, so you just always been a hustler. Like
Trying.
always been a hustler.
Dude, if you have 5 kids and 4 of them are boys, and I just know how much they're going to eat, like I don't have a choice.
Dude, backs against the wall. You got family right there on the wall with you. You got to win. It's either win or lose, you know?
Yeah.
So I love it, man. So just so you guys know, and maybe I should have said this in introduction, but John has since quit his job. He's full-time into real estate, just bought a pool company creatively that essentially replaced his income. And then he just bought his first creative deal. And we're going to get all to that, but that's really where it started. And you fast forward to today and he's absolutely killing it. So my question to you, right, because I get this question a lot, is how did those prior capacities like help you to really get to this point, right? Where now you're a full-time real estate investor, you're doing it full-time, you own your own business. Can you speak to like some of the lessons and some of the capacities and maybe specific skill sets you developed that eventually played a significant role in what your business is today?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned over the last decade is just how to talk to people. And I think that's such a crucial point in every part of this business. So, I mean, being a police officer and trying to talk people into handcuffs, like instead of fight them, that was, learning that negotiation. And then my father-in-law is really good at negotiating. And so going through 75 cars, give or take, the negotiating on the buying side and the negotiating on the selling side, and just seeing him do it and then me do it and practice, like, how do we get the best deal and how do we make it work where both sides are happy? And so I think that's probably the biggest thing over the last 10 years, just like negotiating by all that practice of smaller stuff, even on a bench at a garage sale, like, hey, they want $30 for a bench. I'm like, hey, I'll buy both of those for 20. Okay, sure. Get it out of here. Like just learning stuff like that. And then, but the biggest thing, communicating, and even in stressful situations, just like, especially being a police officer, like just being able to stay chill and stay calm no matter kind of what's coming at you. And so coming over onto real estate side and like just the nerves of cold calling or talking to realtors you've never talked to, or thinking you're going to ask somebody for money, like there's some nerves and stuff to that. And I think all of the prior communication with people has really helped when it comes to this.
Love it, man. I always tell people, because people, and a lot of people always ask me like, hey, how do you get started in real estate if you have no money, no experience? And my response oftentimes is not what people expect, but it's get into sales. Like go sell something, go learn how to sell something, because the soft skills that are developed in those capacities that you just mentioned, like, are really what I think move and transact business at any scale, right? It's interesting, and you probably experienced this as well. Like, it's crazy how like what you did at a garage sale for a $30 bench is more or less the same principles when you bought that house in the East Coast that we're going to talk about, and the business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, exactly. And so, but understanding how to develop those at a small scale, and then you get better, and really what you're selling and transacting gets bigger. That's when the paychecks start to come. So that's awesome, dude. Yep. So you develop all these skills. Okay. You kind of are a jack of all trades. You're developing yourself, your skill sets. Then you get to a point where you flip your first house. Now, walk us through kind of the mindset of why you decided to get into real estate. And then also I'd love to hear the context as around that first deal. Like, was it something you and your buddy just like kind of figured out? Did you guys have a mentor? How was that first deal in real estate?
Yeah. So like actually getting into real estate was, it was just the next step up for me. We did all the cars, and it was just so much work to make $500 or $1,000, and you're holding onto a car for 2 weeks to a month, whatever it was. And I was like, let's do a deal that we can make 40 or 50 grand on, and just do one of those instead of do 50 cars. Right. And so That was kind of like the next jump up. Like, hey, I was doing loans, so I kind of saw prices, and I was kind of in the real estate market, even though I personally wasn't investing or doing anything. And so my best friend and my brother, we just talked, and I finally was like, dude, let's do this. Let's start actively looking for one. We've all kind of got a little bit of cash now at that time, and because loans were good. And so we had some cash, and we said, hey, let's buy a house. So we had no mentor. YouTube University, didn't really know what we were doing as far as how to buy a house. And so we just went out and we bought a house that was actually on market. It was on Zillow. I think there were I think we put in, like, they wanted like 299. This one houses were kind of going a little over. And we made our offer like really random and unique. It was like $308,275 and like 50 cents, something that made them go, what? And so there was one guy that offered more than us, and then his offer fell through, and so we got it. And I mean, we probably would have lost our butts if it wasn't for the luck of buying that right as the time where, like, every month houses were just appreciating here in California, like 10% every month.
Yeah.
And so the longer it took us to figure out how to fix the house, like, we were making more money, which I don't think is normally the case. So it offset all of our holding costs. It offset all of the extra construction we had to do. It's just because the housing market was booming. So we learned a ton. I got a little bit lucky, but we tried to figure it out all on our own. So
yeah, love it, man. Wait, what year was this, if you don't mind me asking?
I think this was 2020.
Okay, man. So you guys have really created like a lot of momentum for your guys' self in just 4 years.
Yeah.
It's like,
and we took quite a big break between that flip, because the whole experience was like, this was way too much work for and too many mistakes. And just the way it all worked out, when we'd finished the flip, there's like a 2-year break, 2.5-year break before we touched anything in real estate again.
Cool.
Outside of loans.
Well, and then let's dive into that, right? So you have a flip, you do well, you realize it was more work than you anticipate. Is that what then eventually led you, after your 2-year break, to step into mentorship, or when did that become like something that you guys felt you needed to invest in?
Yeah, so that kind of is like a part of our personal story on life, where Bethany, loans had slowed down. So we had kind of, and this is, a learning experience, but we got accustomed to a lifestyle that we probably should not have been accustomed to, because I was making good money with mortgages. And as rates went up, the mortgage money dried up. But now we had raised our standard of living after 3 years of making loan money, to where, like, hey, I don't know how we back off of this a little bit. Where do we save? Because now we have this mortgage and we have this HELOC for our new kitchen and we have different things. So Bethany actually went and got a full-time job, first time since we were married, at a construction company as their marketing director. And I was still full-time police officer. And it just, for our family and our kids and her wanting to be a wife and not work full-time, it just did not work for us, for her to be a working mom. It just didn't. There's some families that works great for. For us, it did not. And so the goal was, all right, how do we make it so that she can quit her job? And so I was like, we need to figure this out. And it was either TikTok or Instagram. And I came across Kyle's page. I came across one other one, and then I found Kyle's page, and I was like, hey, Kyle, can I take you out to lunch? And, and so I found Kyle's, I actually messaged him from Bethany's account, but it was me messaging him, because she has like 25,000 followers on her.
Yeah.
On
She
her
has a presence.
Davis page. Yeah. And so my Be Fat Davis page doesn't have that many followers, but so that was like the spark. It was like, we needed her to quit her job as like a family. We needed that. And she needed it too. It was not good for her. And so the company was great that she worked for, just her working 40 hours a week and driving 45 minutes, and it just didn't work. And so that led us to, hey, we need to do something else. And so when I came across Kyle's page and the 6FF course, I was like, if we're doing this, we're doing it right. We're skipping from A straight to Z. I'm not trying to stumble through this and learn like we did the flip. It's like, someone's already reinvented it, put our money where our mouth is, which will also force us to do the work, as opposed to like, free YouTube. Okay, we could figure it out. Like, we paid for the one-on-one, which is the best investment we ever made in ourselves. And went straight from like, hey, went straight through the course and did everything we were told. And that's just propelled us to, step up right away and not have to go through like the flip experience of learning as we went. It was like, I mean, we still learned stuff, but I mean, it was next level having somebody there basically holding our hand and being like, no, do it this way, do it this way. So yeah, that's how it all
Absolutely.
started.
No, and I tell people this all the time, right? And this is a prime example. You're going to pay in two ways, and you have to pick one, right? It's either time, right, or money, and sometimes it's both, right? Because you can take YouTube University and you can essentially learn everything that people teach you, or you can pay and invest for the shortcut. And the shortcut, in my opinion, in any capacity, is a mentor. Like
Yes.
that really is what the shortcut is, right? And
Mhm.
so. And that's exactly what you guys did. And I kind of want to dip into that just a little bit because then now I want to get to the meat and bones of all this. Why I know everybody's listening to this, and that's the CASTR side, your business, the house you bought with Creative. And by the way, you did all of those with none of your own money, and we're going to dive into that. But talk to us a little bit about how you stepped into Airbnb, because I know there's people that are going to be excited about that. You take Kyle's course. What was the business model you guys stepped into? How'd you scale that? We'll keep the tip of the iceberg, and then we're going to shift into kind of the CASTR method.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, we had roughly 20 to 25K, maybe even a little bit less than that, 15K in savings that were like, hey, we can use this. So we knew we weren't in a spot to buy a house at that time. So we went straight into arbitrage. I just researched, we went right in our backyard. We live in Lodi, California, and 60,000 people. The AirDNA numbers don't look great, but we knew the market for big houses was good. Just on going through the course with Kyle. And so we went right after. He's like, start with a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, see how things go. And I was like, okay. And the next day I was like, hey, I got a yes. It's 3,000 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 3.5 bath. So we went straight for the big house, and we start off with arbitrage. So I called a property manager, which most people are like, how do we, but my first house was a property manager. We've got 2 other houses from that. I'm actually reaching out to him in conversation with him about being an investor in future deals right now, which is pretty cool, all from that first call. But we have now 4 houses that are arbitrage, 1 house that's a partnership, and then 5 houses that we co-host, 5 properties, all right here in our hometown. And then now we have also the 11th house that we actually purchased, and we did that one through CASTR.
That's awesome. Love it, love it, love it. So you guys stepped into arbitrage. You created some cash flow. Talk to me about what's going through your mind with your W-2, right? Because now you have been full-time real estate. When did you quit? Beginning of this year?
March 5th this year. Yeah.
Yeah. So just recently.
Yeah.
So throughout all this, you're building your arbitrage. Like, I think that is the single most barrier to people when it comes to jumping in, is kind of that fear. Mm-hmm. And so you did it the right way by kind of, getting some proof of concept. At what point and what conversation did you and your wife have, or maybe you had with yourself, where you felt, okay, we have enough here to be able to quit? Talk us through that and that mindset.
Yeah. So first was her. We get our first house. We don't know what we don't know, right? When we start the middle of March, 2023, I think we went live on the 10th or the 11th. And I just remember, because our first house, so I knew everything about it. Now I couldn't even tell you half of how our business is run.
It means you're growing, baby. Yeah. Systems, processes, people. Love it.
And our operation manager, Ashley, next level. I mean, we couldn't live without her, right? So the very first house, we start on the 10th. So it's only 2/3 of the month. And I'm pretty sure we had 7,000 in bookings. And our rent for that house is $3,200. And so the very first month we made $3,000. And then April, halfway through the month, we were at 8 or 9K in Airbnb rentals on this house. And I go, man, we could probably, you could probably quit sooner than later, Bethany. And I just got under agreement with our second property. And Bethany comes up and is like, hey, I quit my job today. I was like, whoa, wait a second. Hold on, let's back up here. And so really, it was just and there was a little bit of fear to that, but it was proof okay, now we have to go get more houses. And so that really sped us up into getting more properties right away. So she quit basically 3 weeks into our houses being live, and she gave them a 3-month notice. So she still worked there for 2 or 3 months after she gave notice, but it was it was like first month she quit her job.
Yeah.
And so then the goal was for me to quit mine. And we used the arbitrage. It did well. And we started a little bit slower. We had 3 houses, I think, after 3 months or 4 months, and they were doing well. But it was definitely not enough for me to quit. And then we were going through the busy season, and we didn't really understand or appreciate the difference in seasonality and how well the summer here versus winter. And so we were using that money to offset her life or her job. And so when business kind of slowed down a little bit, we're like, we gotta figure something else out now, because you just got to prepare for the off season. So it wasn't time for me to quit yet. And but me working full time as a police officer, I was working 4 days on, 4 days off. Loved the job. Well, there was like 5% of it that I loved, which is like the
crazy stuff.
Yeah, the car chases and running people, chasing after people and getting in fights every once in a while. Like, that was the fun stuff, right? The other 95% is just miserable, especially graveyard. So I worked graveyard the last 5 years, just 4 hours of sleep, probably 5 days a week. And I just wasn't having enough time to work on the business. So the goal is like, how do we quit? How do we quit? How do we quit? And so it took a little bit of time, but we kind of came up with a plan. So
love it. And so now you've been full-time into real estate since March, and you have since, and you closed on the business before you quit, right? Yeah. Creatively. Yep. And then you closed on the house after you quit. Is that the right timeline? Okay, cool. So let's start then with the business, because you create this arbitrage. You have some cash flow. Bethany quits. You guys have a plan together where you're going to quit, and then you learn creative finance, and you jump into CASTR and you buy a business. Of all things, the first thing you buy is a business, not a house.
Not a business.
And so this is where we're going to spend a lot of time, right? Okay. In the meat and bones of this and in the house. And so walk us through, I guess, first and foremost, kind of your experience in learning CASTR and learning creative acquisitions, and then how you found the deal, how you sourced it, and that whole process.
Yeah. So I knew that if I wanted to quit, I had to replace my income. I knew that was the only option. We wouldn't be able to survive if I just left and then made no money. It just wouldn't work. It's not possible. So I was like, how do I replace my cash flow? I wanted to buy real estate. I wanted to buy properties, but I just saw that the timeline on that was going to be so long. And I knew that I just wouldn't be able to put in enough effort with the time that I had working full-time as a police officer. So I learned seller carry. I watched a lot of, and I think this goes back to, I did spend a lot of time on YouTube University watching Pace Morby and Jerry Norton and these guys on there. And I kind of understood the concepts, but I didn't understand how to fully implement it. And I'm like, if I go make this offer, one, I don't really know what I'm supposed to offer. And two, if they say yes, I have no idea what to do. Like, I'll figure it out, but I don't like, I'm going to go back to the flip and make a ton of mistakes. So I don't know what to do. So, so I watched and I saw some other people talking about buying businesses. And so I started looking at businesses while I was doing real estate. I found a company that my company is called Delta Pool Care. It's a pool company. It's a pool business, not just a route. So some people buy routes, but the owners are great people. And I still have a relationship with them because we bought this creatively, and I still call him and ask him questions, and a really good relationship there. But I reached out to them in December last year and said, hey, I'm interested in buying the company. I called them and talked to them and said, hey, look, instead of me going and getting an SBA loan and giving you all this money and just giving you your purchase price that you want at $400,000, why don't I have you guys carry the note and I'll make payments to you and you can earn interest. And instead of making 400 over the next 5 years, you're going to make 425 or or 500. I think I even told them like 500 or 550,000 after all interest. And so I tried to get them to carry the whole note, which they couldn't do. So they ended up carrying 400,000 purchase price. They carried 100,000. I sent the deal to my best friend, who's a certified CPA and he's a financial forecaster for a huge company, a wizard with Excel. He's a nerd, basically. He's a nerd. And so he knows that too. And I tell him that all the time. Anyway, he goes over all the numbers. He's like, dude, this is amazing. Where are you going to get the rest of the money? I was like, I don't know yet. I'm going to go try to find it. He's like, all right, I'll give you half. I was like, sick. So then I go talk about it at work. And one of my buddies at the PD, he goes, dude, he goes, I always hear about you saying yes to decisions. Always hear about you going out and making stuff happen. Everybody else here just talks about it and no one does anything, but we all talk about it except for you. I want to be like you. I'll give you the other half. Do you need an investor? And I didn't even ask for it. And I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, I'm here, send the money here. And so that's how it happened. So I sold them 40% of the company. So my two buddies each owned 20%. So they gave me 150 each. The seller carried 100,000. I spent, I think, a total of about $1,000 for some closing fees and opening up my LLC out of my pocket. Now I own the whole company. Last year it cash flowed about 225. And since then we took it over with, I think, 248 pools or 250, somewhere in there. We've added, just a couple of days ago, we officially hit 50 new accounts, which is about $8,000 a month in additional revenue. Yeah. So company's going crazy. And it's the same thing as the Airbnb business. I hired a office manager. Her name's Bree, that like, I honestly could not live without. Like I would just, so putting process in place. So full time, I'm a pool boy. That's what I tell people. But so I manage the whole company. I try to get it, I'm trying to get it to a point where, and the goal is for me to take over, right? Or for me to back out so somebody else can take over. But yeah, the whole deal was done creative finance with, I can't tell people no money, but $400,000 company, cash flows over 200, profit. And I spent, I think, about $1,000 total to get into the business. So
freaking let's go. Let's go. Yeah. Bought a pool company, none of your own money, just went out and hustled it. And so I want to break down and praise you here, right? Because what I love about you, John, is like literally when you talk about these things, you make it seem so simple. And like the reality is if you make it that way, right? Because like for you, I think, and this is what I tell all the students, like, and this is, if you're watching this and you're a student and you're just listening to this story, the one takeaway you can take from John is this dude just does it. He just makes it happen. And you had your friend tell you that and then proceeded to give you 200 grand, right? Yeah. And that is like action really is the key factor in all this. I can't tell you how many people, we talk about what's that word? Analysis paralysis, right? Yeah. People are just always looking for the perfect time to jump, the perfect deal. And the reality of it is like you find like deals, they're not just found, they're created, right? I say that all the time. And that's exactly what you did when you leverage all these relationships. And dude, I love it. I love it, man. And sorry, go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
A lot of that praise goes to my wife. And we used to work for an event planner that's like people, and this comes from her. And so my wife and then her old boss, who used to have this event company, that they're like, we want elephants and a circus and fire breathing dragons. And she's like, no problem. And she would just say yes and figure it out. And she would always tell Bethany, if the opportunity's good, just say yes, and then you'll figure it out. You'll find somebody that'll help you. And so Bethany has always said that to me. And so I take a lot, she gets a lot of credit for me saying yes to some of this stuff and then be like, now what? So say yes and then just make it happen.
Dude, it's funny. I think analysis paralysis comes from this idea where you have to people feel like they have to know 100% or 99% of the solution to be able to say yes, right? Yeah. When the reality of it now is like, for me personally, I only need to know 50% of the solution, because then I will figure out the rest. Like you will figure out the rest as you go. And a lot of times the solution that you come up with along the way is far better than whatever solution that you would have thought just looking at the problem, right? Yeah. And that's exactly what you guys are examples of. And so, dude, congratulations. That's incredible. What was the timeline? December is when you bought it, yeah? So December.
I think I sent a letter of intent like either right before or right after Christmas. And then there went through I think we closed on it officially middle of March, maybe beginning of March. I don't know the exact date, which I should, but I think officially I took over April 1st or something like that. And cool. So it took a little, and really, I'm kind of old school, and the seller was the same way. Like we met for dinner, we talked, we really liked each other, and we shook hands, and like deal was done there. And then it was just kind of like figuring out, okay, how do I take over? How's the paperwork? How are you going to do this while you're a cop? And I was like, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. And then I told Bethany, and she's like, you probably should just quit. And then I was like, all right. So then I typed up a letter and drove to Brentwood, or drove to my old police department that day and turned in the letter the same day. She's like, I don't think you're gonna be able to do both. I'm like, yeah, you're right. All right, I'll quit. So
Yeah. Love it, man. Dude, that is awesome. And again, right, coming back to your story, capacities you developed along the way, right? It all started with you negotiating that bench at that garage sale, right?
Yeah.
All the way leading to those same principles being applied to a pool company. Mm-hmm. And look where it got you. So, dude, congrats, man. That's incredible.
Thanks.
And so you buy this pool company, and now I want to pivot into CASTR, right? Yeah. So you get your feet wet and creative by buying a business. Talk us through your experience in the CASTR community, what you learned there that eventually led you to buy a deal back east that was a killer deal. And I want you to go through all the details of how you found everything like that. But let's start with the CASTR community. We'd love for you to share your experience on that, what you learned, how it was valuable to eventually lead to that East Coast deal.
Yeah. So joining the CASTR community was, for me, just a no-brainer. And part of it was that other part, just like the 6SF, like, hey, put my money where my mouth is. And if I'm going to invest in this, then I don't have a choice. I have to make it work. And that kind of gave me that extra spark. Once I got in there, just learning. And I mean, being on weekly calls and hearing you personally call and talk to,
sellers.
Getting on, exactly. So getting on weekly calls and hearing you personally talk to sellers, talk to agents, and just how the conversation is exactly what I thought it should be. But I just was like, that just seems too simple. And then hearing you do it, I'm like, I guess I could just repeat that. And so, that was just like a big step for me in moving forward, as far as like, okay, it really is what I think it is. I'm not don't overthink this. Just make the phone calls and explain the information that you already know and the information you're learning in this course. And that's really just seeing your example and seeing the chillness and the ease of just calling and have a conversation and getting the ball rolling. That's probably like the biggest thing for me. And then the second biggest thing was being held accountable, because now I'm a part of a group where, I can't just show up and not do anything. Like, I need to put some effort into this, and I need to start making the phone calls. I need to do the boring stuff that not everybody's going to do over and over again, which is make the phone calls. And every time I say this, it's like self-conviction, because I probably haven't called a realtor for a new house in like 2 weeks now. And so it's like, dude, why not? What are you doing? And, so and part of that's being in the group, talking to you, seeing the other members, seeing them make their gains and their wins. And so that's probably the two biggest things. One, seeing how easy you made it look. Two, the conviction of like, hey, you're in this, you need to be held accountable. You need to do it.
Love it. So you have this group, this accountability, you're getting some tools, it sounds like, from the CASTR. Talk to us, because I remember talking to you and you were like, man, I just got to find time, because you were in the hustle of your business.
Yeah.
You just bought the pool, you jumped into CASTR, and then you were like, hey, Lami, like, I promise I'm going to get to it. And then I remember there was 1 week specifically where it's like, hey, this is the week.
Yeah.
And you made, I don't even know how many calls, and then you closed the deal. So it's like,
which makes me mad why I don't have 10 deals already. It's my own fault.
Exactly. And so talk us through that, right? Talk us through how that week where you made the calls, how many did you make? Where'd you start? And then how the deal ended up coming to, and then the deal itself. I'm sure people are itching to hear the term. So let's start there.
So my wife is very fit, and so I try to keep up with her. And so I was missing, because of the pool business, and now I'm even busier than when I first started. And it's just because it's summer and people use their pools now, and algae and heat they suck. So, but I was just super busy. So I was missing the gym. I wasn't making any phone calls for CASTR. I felt like I was just trying to learn everything I could about pools and keep my head above water. And
pun intended.
I was diving in the deep end, just trying to stay afloat, whatever else. Like, what other puns I could have. So I was trying to really just like focus on that. And like, I have to make this work. I have 2 investors, 2 partners. I have to make this make money. I have to survive. And so I was learning the pools. And then I got to the point where like, hey, look, I'm in this group. it's actually called, you were in saying, hey, have you been to any investor meetups, which I hadn't. And then you had to jump off, I think, early, and Kyle's on there and he's like, hey, how many offers have you guys submitted? Has anybody submitted an offer this week? And, there's a couple people that, that like, yeah, me, but I hadn't. And he goes, look, between now and next week, you guys need to submit some offers, whether it's tech, just submit some offers. Okay. And I left that call and I told Bethany, I was like, all right, look, it's the end of March. I'm going to, for the month of April, I'm going to get up at 4:30. I'm going to go to the gym at 5. I'll get back at 6:15. And then I'm calling, I had researched, I want to go into Indiana. And so I was like, I'm going to make phone calls from, 6:30 to 7, 6 or 6:30 to 8, 6 to 8, whatever. Set up like a timeline for myself. I'm going to stick to this plan and I'm going to make it happen. Like just buckle down and work hard. And so before we go too far, that only lasted about 2 weeks. Waking up at 4:30 is not cool.
That's brutal. That's brutal.
Cool. I don't have the self-discipline. I suck. So the next week, sure enough, Monday, I followed that routine. I had made a list of properties in Indiana I wanted to call. I start calling, and then, I get through my list pretty quickly, making phone calls. And I just go on to Zillow and kind of filter with how I was taught by you and find a property. And no joke, is probably somewhere between my 8th and probably 12th call, somewhere in that range. Like, it wasn't even that many calls at all. A lot of the conversations are longer. I had cold call for wholesaling, and that was just terrible. And I do, 50 calls a day, and I only did that for like 3 days. And that was, so I quit on that pretty quick. My brother does that. And he's like, dude, you quit. I was like, yeah, that sucks. And so calling realtors to try to buy their house was a lot easier, but it did lead to longer conversations. So, I probably get through 3 or 4 a day because I'd find stuff in common and we would talk. So I think it was by Wednesday, the 3rd day. So probably 8th to 10th, 12th call, whatever. I got a realtor that was just all about it. And so, dude, his name's Adam. He's a rock star. And I call, he goes, hey, this sounds great. Yeah, let me call the seller. So he calls this, so if you want the details of it, I find this house, it's in South Bend. It's listed for $369,000. I basically tell him, hey, I can make an offer at close to what she's asking for. It's been on the market for 90 days. It might've been even a little bit longer than that. It's not selling. I'll give her what she wants if she'll sell it to me on terms. And he's like, okay, yeah. What do you mean by terms? What kind? And so I go, hey, I'll text you over a few offers and just shout it out to her and see if she's interested. And he goes, okay. So he calls me back. He goes, yeah, she's interested. Send over the offer. So you had placed in an example of one offer that you had sent. And so I copied and pasted, and offer 1, offer 2, offer 3, offer 1 at 365, I think. 15%. I don't know the numbers. Not maybe 20,000 down or 25,000 down, 4% interest. Yeah. The next one, a lower purchase price, maybe 355, 3.5% interest with
just pushing and pulling terms essentially.
Yeah. So basically, just in 5-year, 6-year balloon, whatever. Made some offers, and he calls me back about a couple hours later and says, hey, she likes option 1, but can you do a 5-year balloon instead of 6-year balloon? I was like, no problem. So sent over paperwork and got signed all the purchase agreement and got the property under contract probably within a day or two of that kind of text conversation back and forth.
Love it. So what exactly did you end up closing the terms on? Do you remember them offhand?
Yeah. So we initially signed paperwork for a deal at 3. She was asking 367 or 369. Initially signed the deal at 365, 4% interest, 25,000 down on a 5-year balloon, but that's not what it finished at. So yeah, okay. Which is really good. So then under contract, we had inspections done and we got an appraisal. The appraisal came back, I think, at 369, so higher than our listed price, but we had probably 20 to 25,000 in repairs that needed to be done. The floors were kind of wonky. And so we countered back there and said, hey, here's 3 more options, but based on this inspection report, we could either lower the purchase price, we can lower the down payment, we can lower the interest rate, but we need something for you to give here. And so when it was all said and done, we did 355 on the purchase price, 15,000 down, and a 4% interest rate, interest only for 3 years. And then a P&I after that for 2 more years on a 5-year balloon. So our interest only payment for the next 3 years is $1,100. Just long-term rents. I'm pretty sure we can get like 2,200 to 2,400 on long-term rent. Airbnb somewhere between 3,500 to 5,500, probably depending on the season.
And how much did you put down again?
So 15,000. And yeah, and the way they do taxes, she had to prepay or pay back taxes. So when it was all said and done, I'm pretty sure we were only out of pocket for like 10,500 because she had like 4,000 in taxes that she had to put forward. So yeah, but 15,000 down. Yeah.
Let's freaking go. See, and you did that. You committed to 1 week. You made 8 to 10 calls, and then you buy a $350,000 house for 15 grand down and $1,000 around monthly, and you can long-term rent it and cash flow that puppy.
And you hear all the time people say you could do this without your money. I brought in a capital partner on this deal, so I own half. He owns half. We used all of his money. I did not use. I mean, so I used some money to set up the LLC and to pay for. One of your partners, Rochelle, and Constant Close to do all the paperwork for. Yep. But
shout out.
He's like, hey, send me the receipt and I'll reimburse you for those, which I haven't done yet. So as soon as I send him the receipts, he's like, I'll reimburse you for those. He's paying for the repairs that need to be done. So I literally, I can say that and use it correctly. I'm in this deal for $0 out of my own pocket.
Let's freaking go.
Yeah. I own half a house. I'm going to get half the cash flow. And, whether we have different exit strategies for it, but again, for no money, nothing out of my pocket, just the effort of waking up at 4:30 in the morning, which I say that out loud. And I'm like, why aren't you still getting up at 4:30? Because that sucks. It's no fun.
And it just goes to show that the opportunity is there for anybody who really wants it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why, John, you have had so much success. And I love your story because you are just a hustler. You just do it. You just do it and you listen to the right people. You implement the right strategies and things happen. And I hope people are really keying in on this because your whole story is just, it's really the entrepreneurial dream. And what I love about it is that it's simple genius, right? Like there was not a crazy life event that happened. I mean, granted, depending on what you define as crazy, you quitting your job. But at the end of the day, you've been working and chiseling away at that all the way from buying stuff and flipping it at garage sales to now buying $350,000 homes for 15 grand down with none of your own money. Right. And it's all led to this. And that's awesome. And so the last question, this is where we'll wrap up is, what are your thoughts now? How has your perspective changed now that you've done the deal? Is it harder than you thought it would be? Is it simpler than you thought it'd be?
It's one of those things. It's like I use the analogy of like making a putt on a golf course. It's really simple. You just tap it in, right? But it's also difficult at the same time. And the difficult part is like, I think all internal. And the difficult part is setting the schedule. It's getting over the nerves of like, I don't want to cold call people because every time I'm like, all right, I'm going to make calls today. I'm always like, oh, I don't want to do this. But as soon as you make the first one or two, you're like, all right, this is not a big deal. It's easy. Right. And so I think the difficult part is all of the internal. Like I have everything right there in front of me. And I think that's also for a lot of people. I still remember vividly, and I think it goes back, like I played college football. I did very well. And I still remember dropping like a 70-yard bomb, like down the sideline wide open on a stop and go that would have given us the lead at homecoming my senior year, like in college, no joke. And I remember that play and I'm like, I don't know why. And I say that because I still remember the second phone call I made to Indiana was a realtor. And I call her and I go, hey, and she goes, if this is some dumb sub-2 or creative finance deal, don't even waste my time. And I was like, wait, so you don't want to sell the house and make money? And she's like, I knew it. I don't waste my time, and hung up the phone. And I'm just like, but I remember that. I'm like, I'm like, what an idiot. I want to buy the house. But the second thing is like, I'm like, oh man, I don't like that discourages. I don't want to make the calls, but it's like, that's an internal battle of like, hey, don't worry about that. That's just someone that's either uninformed or it's just a hurdle, and just go to the next one, because the next person is going to be a great conversation. And so I think the biggest thing on the difficultness is internal. I think all the answers are right there in front of me. They're in front of whoever wants them, especially if they're already in the CASTR group, or if they're not, or they're not in 6FF. The answers are right there. And so I think one of my biggest successes, or one of the biggest reasons for some of the success I think I've already felt, is being coachable. And I think there's a theme like through most of my stuff. Maybe your garage selling kind of figured out on my own, but when I did cars, I really leaned heavily on my father-in-law because he had done it before, right? So he taught me everything first, like right away. When I did mortgages, I had a mentor and people that helped me like learn how to do the business and do it. When we started Airbnb, I hired Kyle and hired someone to teach me. And now with CASTR, like I hired you, worked with Rochelle, worked with Rochelle in doing the paperwork. And so I'm a strong believer in my own life of saying yes, trying to figure it out, but then just bringing somebody on that already knows how, so that it goes easier, so I can just move quicker. And so,
dude, love it, man. John, I know a lot of people are watching this and they're eating it up, and I appreciate your time. Congratulations so much on your success with your business. You've been a wealth of knowledge. Again, if you're watching this, hopefully you're really internalizing the principles that John is implementing in his business. All your whole company that you want, that you envision, it's all there for those who actually want it, right? And John, you embody just taking action and winning, brother. So appreciate you. Fearless family, thank you again for showing up and being here. John, appreciate your time, brother. Until next time, man, we'll keep in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. We'll keep in touch. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, John is just an absolute stud. He's a killer. He's doing all of the right things by just taking massive, massive action. And that is really the message that I hope all of you take. Guys, it is not complex. Like how to make money in this real estate game, how to buy properties, how to do all these things. It's not complicated. It's actually very, very simple. It's not easy. It's difficult to be consistent, to pick up the phone and call, to take action, to quit your job and bet on yourself. That is very difficult to do. However, it's not complex. How to transact it and how to operate, how to do these things is actually a very, very simple process in which we, as John has mentioned, how I teach that. I can help you understand and find these deals, find these opportunities so that you can become a full-time real estate investor and not have to worry about your W-2. So if you found this valuable and you want to learn about how John is doing these deals and how he has this accountability partners, how he has this community to help him, go ahead and click the link below. I'd love to get you on a call with my team. Thank you again for being here. It means the world that you support this channel by even just watching it. So I appreciate it. You have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, fearless investors, we'll see you guys around.